Nobody cares about your music. Not your friends, not your mother, not the algorithm, not even the people who looked you in the eye and said they'd support you. And I know that sounds harsh. I know that lands somewhere uncomfortable. But here's the thing. That's not actually your problem. Your problem is what you do because nobody cares. You start second guessing everything. You change your sound, you overthink every post, you sit on releases for weeks because you're not sure anymore. Because somewhere underneath all of it, there's this quiet voice saying, if nobody cares, what's the point? I want to talk about that voice today, where it comes from, what it does to you, and more importantly, what you can actually do about it. Because most advice on this stop said, keep going. But that's not enough. You need to understand what's actually happening, so you can make a decision that comes from clarity instead of panic. You're probably thinking, Nikki, do you know what you're talking about? Well, I've spent almost 10 years working in youth welfare and education with people who don't fit the system. And I've seen what happens when the system keeps pushing you to adapt, instead of trying to understand you and adapt to your needs. At the same time, I've been a musician for about 20 years. So when I talk about artists struggling in this industry, I'm not guessing. I've seen this pattern from both sides. Before I get into it, I made a free reflection exercise that goes directly alongside what I'm about to share. It's short, it's practical, and it's built specifically for independent artists who feel like they're losing direction. The link is in the description. Grab it now before you forget and come back to it after this video. Let me paint a picture. You've been working on a song, not a quick thing, a real thing. Weeks of sessions, reworking the mix, rewriting the hook, convincing yourself it's done, then opening it again at midnight because something still feels slightly off. And finally, you release it. On Spotify or Apple Music, even with a video on YouTube, and for a moment it feels significant, like something shifted, like you did the thing. You pick up your phone, nothing. You wait a few hours, nothing. A couple of plays, a like from someone you know personally, maybe a comment from your mom, and your brain, which is trying to protect you, which is always trying to protect you, starts doing what it does. Maybe it's not good enough. Maybe I released it at the wrong time. Maybe I need to change the artwork, the title, the sound. Not because you actually believe any of that, but because you don't see a reaction. And your brain needs something to explain the silence. Here's what I've come to understand about this. Most artists don't quit when they fail. They quit when they feel invisible. Failure you can process. Failure means something happened. Something went wrong that you can learn from. There's data, there's a story. But invisibility? Invisibility is just silence. And silence leaves the story completely open. So your brain writes the worst version it can imagine. Nobody connected with it because it wasn't good. Nobody shared it because it wasn't worth sharing. Nobody cared because there's nothing to care about. And the brutal thing is, you can't disprove any of that because nobody said anything either way. So the silence becomes a mirror and you project everything you already fear about yourself onto it. And that's not a streaming problem, that's a marketing problem. That's what happens when your sense of direction depends entirely on external feedback. And most independent artists, especially in the 2 to 5 year range, especially after they've already invested real money and real time, are running completely on that feedback loop. When the feedback is good, they feel like they're building something. When the feedback is quiet, they feel like they're failing. And that is an incredibly unstable place to build a career from. Because here's what happens next. When nobody cares, you start reacting. You look around, you study what's getting attention, and you adjust. New sound, new content approach, new aesthetic, new strategy. And it feels like progress, it feels like adaptation, like you're being smart, but you're not building anymore. You are chasing attention. And those are two completely different activities, even though from the outside they can look almost identical. I've done this multiple times. I would be 3 months into something, a sound, a direction, an approach, and it would be quiet. Not bad, just quiet. No real signal either way. And I would change course, not because something was clearly wrong, but because the silence made me anxious. Because sitting in uncertainty felt like doing nothing. Because changing felt like taking control. And every time I did it, I reset my own clock. I threw away 3 months of momentum because I couldn't tolerate the discomfort of not knowing yet. And I told myself it was a pivot. It was evolution. It was me being responsive to the market. But really, I was just scared. And I was making fear-based decisions and calling them strategy. And if this is already hitting something for you, the exercise below is built exactly for this kind of moment. Not to give you motivation, to give you something solid to come back to. It's in the description. This is where I want to slow down, because there's something structural happening here that most artists never name. You are trying to build something with depth and intention. Inside systems like Instagram and Spotify that are engineered to reward reaction. Instagram doesn't reward depth. It rewards frequency and engagement. Spotify doesn't reward patience. It rewards volume and playlist placement. TikTok doesn't reward artistry. It rewards virality, which by definition is a temporary, unpredictable thing. So when you release something you care about deeply and it gets quiet, the platform doesn't say, "Oh, give it time." The platform shows you someone else, someone who's getting attention right now. And your brain immediately starts comparing. They're doing something right that I'm not doing. Their sound, their approach, their content, something is working and mine isn't. But here's what you're actually looking at. You're looking at someone who is winning at a different game. A game that wasn't built for what you're trying to make. The real danger is that you start measuring something meaningful with tools that are only designed to measure attention. And those are not the same thing. Attention is fast. Attention is loud. Attention responds to whatever is trending right now. Meaning is slow. Meaning builds over time. Meaning is almost invisible in the early stages. So if you use attention as your compass, you will always feel like you're behind. Because there will always be someone getting more of it than you. Right now, today. And you will keep adjusting towards that. Keep chasing that. And you'll find yourself 2 years from now with a catalog that doesn't hold together. That sounds like 5 different artists trying to find the thing that finally worked. And this brings me to the real problem. Not the surface problem, not the streams, not the silence, not the algorithm. The real problem is that you need people to care in order to know what to do next. That's where things actually break. Because if your creative decisions depend on external validation, if you can only move forward when someone tells you you're moving in the right direction, you will never stay consistent long enough to build something real. Consistency requires direction, and direction has to come from inside. It cannot come from the feed, it cannot come from your stream count, it cannot come from whether your last release got picked up or not. And this is why so many talented artists who are genuinely good, who have a real perspective, who have something to say, feel completely stuck after a few years. Not because they lack ability, but because they have never built an identity that can exist without validation. They've been building outward, toward an audience, toward metrics, toward the response, without building inward, without asking the foundational questions, without getting clear on who they actually are as an artist, separate from how the world is currently responding to them. And I want to pause here for a second. If this is landing, if you recognize yourself in any of this, the exercise I mentioned at the beginning is specifically built around this problem. It walks you through the questions I'm talking about right now. Not in a vague journaling kind of way, in a direct, practical way that actually gives you something to hold on to. It's free, it's in the description, and it takes about 50 minutes. So what do you actually do? I'm not going to tell you to just keep going. That's not an answer. That's a platitude. Here's what I think actually helps. You flip the question. Instead of asking, do people care? You ask, would I still make this if nobody did? And I want you to sit with that for a second, because it does something really specific. It separates what's real from what's reactive. If the answer is yes, if you would still make this music even if the numbers never moved, even if no one shared it, even if no one talked about it, then you're building from something real, something that belongs to you, something that can actually hold you through the years this takes. If the answer is no, if you're making it because you think it's what will finally get attention, then you are not building, my good friend. You are adapting. And those two paths lead to very different places. One builds identity, and the other builds confusion. One compounds over time, The other resets you every few months. And the hard truth is, most artists oscillate between both. They start something from a real place, and then the silence hits. And slowly they start shaping it toward what they think people want. And then the thing they started with gets lost. And they can feel it, that something is off, but they can't name it. This is what I mean when I say identity confusion is the thing that kills careers. Not a lack of talent, not a lack of effort. It's a lack of knowing who you are clearly enough to protect it when the pressure comes. And if this video resonates, hit like for a second. Not for me, but so more artists stuck in this exact phase can actually find it too. I genuinely want to help. Here's what I actually believe. The phase where nobody cares is not the obstacle. It's the most important phase you'll go through. Because it's the only phase where you can build without pressure. Where you can figure out who you actually are as an artist before anyone is watching. Where you can make decisions for the right reasons. Because something matters to you. Because something is true. Because something is yours. Instead of making them to manage perception. The artists who last aren't the ones who blew up early. In a lot of cases, early attention is actually damaging because you get locked into the version of yourself that got attention before you've had the time to figure out if that's actually who you are. The artists who build real careers are the ones who used the quiet time well, who got clear, who built a foundation, who developed a relationship with their own work that didn't require an audience to feel valid. That's not romantic, that's not embrace the struggle, that's practical. Because the foundation you build right now, the clarity you develop right now in the quiet, is what everything else gets built on top of. So, dear musician, if you feel like nobody cares right now, you are not failing. You are not invisible because you're not good enough. You are early. And being early is not the same as being wrong. This is the phase where you decide what kind of artist you actually want to be. Not the one the algorithm wants, not the one your peers are responding to, not the one that finally gets the attention, the one that's actually true. And that decision, made clearly, made honestly, made from something real inside you, is the thing that will hold you when everything else gets loud. If this video hit something for you, the exercise is in the description below. It's the most practical thing I can point you toward right now. It'll help you get clear on your direction, your identity, and what you're actually trying to build. And if this kind of content is useful, subscribe. This channel is for the independent artist who's serious about the long game. No trends, no shortcuts, just the real work of building something that lasts. Next video, I want to talk about something just as uncomfortable. Why you're still waiting for permission to fully commit to this. And why that might be the single thing holding you back more than anything else. Check it out here. I will see you there.